want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to The Best Movie You Never Saw. And this week we're taking a look at a Christmas classic, The Long Kiss Goodnight, directed by Renny Harlin and starring his then-wife Geena Davis alongside Samuel L. Jackson, Brian Cox, David Morse, and Craig Bierko. And of course, this was famously written by the great Shane Black. In it, a small-town schoolteacher, played by Geena Davis, with amnesia, discovers she's a deadly assassin being hunted by her former employers. To fill in the blanks, she hits the road with a shady private detective played by Sam the Man, only to discover some secrets are best left buried. Back in the 1990s, the female-led action flick was a rarity. While Sigourney Weaver blasted her way to big box office and an Academy Award nomination with Aliens, and Linda Hamilton got jacked for Terminator 2 Judgment Day, neither of them was able to parlay that success into a slew of action roles, with Hamilton in particular immediately being sidelined in the genre. An exception to the rule, however, was Geena Davis, who at the time happened to be married to Renny Harlin, one of the best action directors of the era, who also did, of course, Die Hard 2 Die Harder, The Adventures of Ford Fairlane.
Wait, hold on, Smiley. Come on, get my second thought.
Oh!
I'm only kidding. Come on.
And Cliffhanger. The two put a ton of money into a big budget pirate flick / swashbuckler called Cutthroat Island, but that project quickly spiraled out of control when the original leading man, Michael Douglas, bailed, and they had to settle on a much less established name for the male lead, Matthew Modine. The budget, which involved lots and lots of shooting on the water, which is always a disaster, spiraled out of control and eventually bankrupted the studio, Carolco, earning a measly $10 million at the box office against a $100 million budget. Undeterred, however, they went right back into action again with The Long Kiss Goodnight, based on a red-hot script by Shane Black. And this time, the shoot went well, with them bringing it in at a relatively reasonable $65 million. Sadly, residual bad vibes off of Cutthroat Island seemed to doom this, despite respectful reviews and a strong cinema score rating. It topped out at a poor $33 million domestically. Of course, it was nowhere near the disaster Cutthroat Island was, although collections were much better worldwide, bringing the total to $89 million and change. Years later, it developed a major cult following, and to some degree, it seemed like a major influence on the recent Captain Marvel. A lot of people loved this movie, including Samuel L. Jackson, who in an interview said, "My dude, I love that movie so much." A movie way ahead of its time. Geena Davis, awesome Charlie Baltimore character. The studio didn't know how to market that film because they didn't know that women like seeing themselves as badasses. I kept saying you need to advertise this thing during the day when women were watching soaps. Whatever, they were like, I don't know what you're talking about, but it's gone on to be like this great cult classic because Geena is so good. And that's part of an interview that he gave to The Undefeated. Gotta agree with Sam here. The Long Kiss Goodnight is a stone-cold action classic. It's crazy that the movie wasn't a mega hit, and Geena Davis deserves to be every bit as iconic for this part as her contemporaries are.
Get back to work. Cheers.
To me, this is the best of both worlds as it embraces the awesome over-the-top excess of the genre, but at the time also sports a rock-solid script by the great Shane Black. The premise may seem like old hat in the wake of the Bourne Identity, but let's not forget this was 1996 and Matt Damon was still working on the script for Good Will Hunting and not yet an action hero. Action stars with amnesia was actually kind of a fresh idea. Geena Davis is perfect in what's essentially a dual role. As Samantha, the kind-hearted suburban mom she's become in the wake of her amnesia, Davis radiates kindness and stability. But as Charlie, the merciless assassin with bleached blonde hair, she's just as convincing, and the moral shading the film evokes, suggesting that there was always a buried element of Samantha in Charlie and vice versa, even if both refuse to acknowledge it, pays off. It didn't hurt that she's given an ace sidekick in Samuel Jackson, who was really coming into his own at the time. As the movie starts, you kind of think his wisecracking PA is going to be the tough guy, and he certainly sounds like a Shane Black-style hero, but that's not the case at all.
What are you, a Mormon?
Yes, I'm a Mormon. That's why I just smoked a pack of Newport and drank 3 vodka tonics.
His Mitch Hennessy is a great creation, and you could see why it became one of his favorite roles. For one thing, he gets to say motherfucker a whole lot, thanks to the R rating, but he's also given a real streak of vulnerability behind his bluster, having a troubled relationship with his son and serving as Charlie's conscience later in the film, where she has to weigh her maternal responsibilities against being a stone-cold badass. The supporting cast is ace, with Craig Bierko memorably slimy as the movie's big bad, Timothy, the wisecracking, brutal assassin. Also look for David Morse, who has a memorably sadistic torture scene with Davis, plus Brian Cox in the first of what became a string of character parts for the man in action films of the era. And of course, if you haven't watched it, and you should be, check out his career best turn in Succession on HBO. And you know what? Still my favorite Hannibal Lecter in Manhunter. Gotta say.
Don't think you can persuade me with appeals to my intellectual vanity.
I don't think I'll persuade you at all. You'll either do it or you won't.
As good as Davis and Jackson are, and as tight as the Shane Black script is, the movie works because Renny Harlin's direction is on point, and in recent years, he's really struggled to reestablish himself. But at the time, he was one of the greatest action directors out there. Perfect example is when the assassin One-Eyed Jack attacks Samantha and her family. The fighting is brutal, the dialogue is cracking, and there's also some gallows humor, such as Chrisless carolers singing off-key because he's holding them at gunpoint. It is the best. There's been talk about there potentially being a sequel to this movie, with Renny Harlin telling Movie Hall, "I've created a treatment for a sequel, where basically, in a nutshell, the story is in the opening sequence, Geena's character is murdered, and her daughter, who would now be in her early 20s, who was 5 or 6 years old in the original, would now be in her 20s. She's in university. After her mother dies, she receives this mysterious package, and there's something in it that she really doesn't understand, and now the government and a couple of bad guys are after her because they have a hunch that her mother sent the item to her. And now she's on the run, and she has no one to turn to, and she's totally in over her head. The only person that knows that could maybe help is Samuel Jackson's character, and then it becomes a road movie. But now it's Sam and Geena's daughter on the road. That's my treatment." Gotta say, Renny, bad idea, buddy. Bad idea. If you're gonna do a Long Kiss Goodnight sequel, you gotta bring back Geena Davis, even though you guys are divorced. There's no Long Kiss Goodnight sequel without Geena Davis, just as there's no Long Kiss Goodnight sequel without Samuel Jackson. If you want to see Long Kiss Goodnight, easily available on Blu-ray and digital download, and I have to tell you, this one is a blind buy if you haven't seen it, because it's impossible to just watch The Long Kiss Goodnight once. In fact, it's one of those rare movies I think that gets better the more you watch it. I remember seeing it in theaters with my dad, thinking it was badass, then seeing it on video a couple months later and thinking it was amazing, and then I recently watched it again and holy shit, this movie's good. I'm gonna watch it a couple of times this holiday season, that's for sure. I vividly remember seeing The Long Kiss Goodnight in theaters with my dad, but I also vividly remember friends of mine mocking me for going to see what they call the chick flick. Idiots. The Long Kiss Goodnight is one of the best action films of the era and a stone-cold classic. With all due respect to Renny Harlin, doing a sequel without Geena Davis would be a disaster. With older action stars all the rage these days, why not give Geena Davis one last go-round as Charlie? The Long Kiss Goodnight is one hell of an action movie. Thank you all for watching our show, and if you like what you see, please subscribe to our JoBlo videos channel, and tell your friends who like this sort of content to turn on the bell to receive notifications for all our latest videos. We're an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.